What is generative AI and why do you care? Well, right now, if you've heard of it because of ChatGPT, right? It is taking the world by storm. You cannot go on a social media site without being pummeled by examples of folks who generated whatever with ChatGPT. And most of them are silly but funny. So what is generative AI? It's a bunch of things. It's foundation models. That's what GPT-3 and DALL-E 2 are, that affect the visual space, affect writing, affect creation of recipes, stuff like that. But it's other things. It's generated adversarial networks. It's recurrent neural networks. It's reinforcement learning. It's a bunch of stuff that's snapped together. Allow the machine to learn so it can create. The machine can create. Didn't need us to create, right? Needed us to train it, but didn't need us to create. Why is that a big deal? So think beyond the most common uses of it today, the ones you've been hearing about, with it can write things and it can create visuals. So what else can it do? Well, right now, generative AI is being used to do things like design planes, design machine parts, design clinical trials, design drugs. It can create synthetic data. Synthetic data is a way to create data based on real data that allow you to get larger sample sizes in trials. That by itself will radically change the economics of bringing a drug to a market. It will also allow them to be more accurate in the trials, to represent greater swaths of the population. That's a big deal. So what do you as a company do about generative AI? Three things. First, just take a look at, okay, if somebody in our sector started applying this, don't worry about whether or not you think it's real, started applying this to some core problems, would we be vulnerable? The answer is almost certainly yes. The question you want to get to is how vulnerable. Second, assess, okay, so what are the upsides? If we invested in generative AI, what can we do? What could we gain from it? But then look at the dark side, right? So there are nefarious applications of generative AI, deep fakes being the most plausible and the most familiar to those of us. But there are other challenges associated with generative AI outside of, like, how can it be used poorly and how can you govern that to make sure that something doesn't happen that your company is liable for. But the regulatory horizon, the legislative horizon, the legal liability, like, most of this stuff is not well defined. There's a lot of risk in that. You need to assess what are the risks of us getting into the generative AI space, along with what are the risks of us not getting into it as far as lost business opportunity or competitive disadvantage. Put those three things together and you can start to get a pretty good picture of, so what should we do and when should we do it? This is new turf, guys. Most companies that I know have not spent a lot of time thinking about it, not at an institutional level. There's probably really smart, forward-thinking people within most organizations that are. I would love to hear from you on it. Hit me in the comments, give me your thoughts, tell me what you think the big coolness is, tell me what you think the big badness is. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.